What does it really mean for a nation to be free? You might think it's just about having your own flag or your own parliament, right? But what if it's something deeper? What if it's the freedom to live by your own values, even if that means walking away from a ton of money? Well, the story of Greenland's journey to sovereignty is about so much more than just politics. It's a story about healing, about identity, and about making a huge choice about what freedom actually is. So, to really understand Greenland's journey, we're not going to start with a map. We have to start with a memory. These words, they're from a woman named Helene Thiessen. She was just 7 years old when she was taken from her family. Her story, and the stories of so many others like her, are about a stolen childhood. And that wound, well, that's what's fueling a whole nation's quest to reclaim its very soul. See, long before it was a territory of Denmark, Greenland had its own name and its own language, Kala Alit Nunet. It means the land of the people. And for more than 1,000 years, this has been home to Inuit communities. They built a life in one of the toughest landscapes on Earth. This wasn't just a place they lived, it was their whole world, with its own traditions and this deep spiritual connection to the ice and the sea. But that world, the land of the people, it was completely turned upside down. The desire for self-determination you see in Greenland today, it isn't just some abstract political idea. No, it's a direct response to a really painful history of colonial policies. And right at the heart of that history is a chilling experiment that scarred an entire generation. It all starts with this number, 22. That's how many Inuit children were taken from their families back in 1951. Some of them were as young as 5 years old. They were sent all the way to Denmark for an official state experiment. Now, the goal on paper, it was to create a new Danish-speaking elite who could act as a bridge for assimilation policies back home. But the reality, it was a systematic attempt to just erase who they were. And here's the thing, that little Dean's experiment, it wasn't a one-off tragedy. It was actually part of a much longer systemic pattern of control. You can trace it all the way back to 1721 when the colonial era began. Then, in 1953, Greenland's status was changed from a colony to just another county of Denmark. And then, in the 60s and 70s, something else happened, something really shocking, the spiral case. This was about exerting deep control over Inuit lives, their families, even their own bodies. This powerful quote from Naja Leiberth, it really gets to the heart of that other major trauma, the spiral case. So, during the 1960s and 70s, Danish health authorities ran a campaign. Thousands of Inuit women and girls, some as young as 12, were fitted with IUDs, often with them really knowing or agreeing to it. This was way more than just a medical procedure. It was seen as a deep violation, an attempt to control the very future of the Inuit people. So, when you're faced with a legacy like that of trauma and control, how does a whole people even begin to heal? How do you start to reclaim what was taken from you? Well, for Greenland, the answer was a slow, deliberate, and really hard-fought political journey, a journey towards self-rule. And this path back home, it was built one step at a time. The first huge breakthrough was the Home Rule Act in 1979 that gave Greenland its own local parliament and control over things like education and healthcare. Then, fast forward to 2008, the people got to vote in a referendum, and wow, an overwhelming 75% voted for even more autonomy. That vote led directly to the 2009 Self-Government Act, and this was a piece of legislation that changed absolutely everything. And this right here is the crucial part. That 2009 Act wasn't just about shuffling some paperwork or handing over a bit more administrative power. No, it legally recognized the people of Greenland as a distinct people with the right to determine their own future. That single sentence, it laid the entire legal and moral foundation for the possibility of full independence. Okay, so that brings us to today. Greenland has the legal right to go for independence. The people clearly want it. So what's the holdup? The answer is a really modern dilemma. It's a fundamental choice about what kind of freedom is the most important. Right now, Greenland is standing at a crossroads, looking at two very different paths into the future. Okay, so path number one is economic independence. This would mean tapping into the island's massive reserves of minerals and oil to finally replace that big annual block grant they get from Denmark. Then you've got path number two, cultural independence. This path is all about prioritizing Inuit values, protecting that fragile Arctic environment, and preserving a way of life, even if it means staying financially connected to Denmark for a while longer. Now, to really get that second path, the cultural one, you have to understand this concept, Inuit Kaujama Jatu Kangit, or IQ for short. It's the traditional Inuit knowledge system, and it's basically a worldview where you can't separate knowledge from ethics. They're woven together, so core principles like taking care of the environment are just part of how you understand the world. This isn't just about protecting nature. It's a whole philosophy that makes you ask, are these huge industrial projects even compatible with living a good, ethical life? So, there it is. That's the question at the very heart of Greenland's future. The freedom that comes with money, or the freedom that comes from protecting your culture? It's a choice that is forcing an entire nation to decide what it values most. And for now, the fact that Greenland isn't rushing into huge resource extraction projects, well, that inaction kind of speaks for itself. It suggests a decision has been made. And by making this choice, Greenland is actively redefining what sovereignty can even look like in the 21st century. It's a pretty powerful and maybe surprising answer to that big question. You know, Greenland's story here offers some really profound lessons. It shows us that true independence might be less about political status and more about cultural autonomy. It shows us the incredibly tough choice a nation has to make when money clashes with its soul. And maybe most importantly, it shows us that for Greenland, choosing not to drill, choosing not to mine, choosing to protect their heritage, that is the ultimate act of sovereignty. In the end, Greenland is really pushing all of us to think differently about independence. By saying no to the fast track to economic freedom, they're claiming something different, something maybe even deeper. They're claiming the sovereignty that is the absolute freedom to choose your own values. And that really leaves us with one final thought. Maybe the true measure of a nation's freedom isn't how much money it has, but its courage to protect the things it holds sacred.